Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this new episode of JPiC Radio. Today, in this special edition, we have the honor of receiving a legendary producer, fantastic guest. So before I give you his name, let me tell you a little bit about him. So this man studied mathematics and physical education at the University of Tübingen in 1972. Transferred to the Sport University of Cologne. After completing his studies, he went a year in Kuwait as a handball instructor.
Yes.
That's quite interesting. And after he changed to the psychology of sport. Now, you actually worked in the Olympics. In 1984, in the Winter Olympics, the bobsleigh team wasn't doing too good. So Germany asked him to become the coach of the German team.
Right.
And they actually won a European championship in the fours.
Right.
Right. After that, on the advice of your brother Friedrich, you actually changed careers completely and went in the show business. So this gentleman produced in 1986 the musical Cats, which premiered in Hamburg. And 2 years later, the Starlight Express. He also produced The Phantom of the Opera.
Yes.
Wow. 1993, you and your brother got together in the musical production business. And you have been working for 26 years at Estrel Berlin, producing Stars in Concert.
Right.
Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Mr. Bernhard Kurz.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for being here. I really appreciate you giving us your time.
Me here.
So the Jigsaw Puzzle International Convention is taking place at Estrel Berlin Hotel and Convention Center on May 18, 19th, and 20th. And as we always say, when you come to a Jigsaw Puzzle Convention, it's also the opportunity for you to discover a new city and to partake in some fantastic activities happening around here. So we've been posting a lot about the museums, zoos, and all sorts of computer technique museum where you're going to see the history of video games. That was very exciting. A lot of details on that on our Facebook group. Please follow us. And we also had the opportunity here last night to see the show Stars in Concert. And it was quite interesting, but I'm going to let Mr. Kurz tell us about this production.
Yeah, the idea was to find people who look like famous artists. And I thought it's a good idea, and I saw how people react. I remember walking with Franz Beckenbauer, the best German soccer, how the people reacted when they saw him. So I thought, well, give them more people who are dressed like. And so step by step, I had a person, he looked exactly like Michael Jackson. Mm-hmm. Michael Jackson worked with him when Michael was tired, like a concert, tired. He didn't go back out. He said, your turn. So he stayed backstage to recover, and this other who looked like him continued in the show.
And people were unable to make the difference.
They were unable to make the difference.
Wow. But what gave you the idea to get into the impersonator business in the first place?
I met a person, what's the piano player, famous, Elton John. He looked like Elton John.
Okay.
And I saw him in Vegas. Unbelievable. He spoke like Elton John, and there was a concert, but it wasn't Elton John. But people freaked out, and so I thought, a friend of mine had a house with about 600 seats and was not very successful. And I was laughing. I said, you know what? If we find 2 or 3, 4 more lookalikes, we put a show on. And that's what we did.
And you started this initially in Vegas or in Germany?
We started it here, but we got the people. Vegas was at that time number one to find lookalikes, impersonators. There, we had a conference. We had about 200 impersonators. But everybody thinks he's Elvis. But and that was very impressive.
Because seeing the show yesterday.
Yeah.
We realized at what level of detail you really take care of things. Every movement that the artist does. And there's actually a video playing on screen behind the performer. And the synchronization between the two is pretty remarkable.
Yeah, and it's a lot of fun how people react.
You received in Las Vegas you were named Best Producer in the Artist Choice Award in Las Vegas.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How did that come to be?
That means a lot to me, and sure, I was proud, but I was able. I learned a lot in the theater in Germany, working for theaters, and that helped me a lot. And at that time, when I put on Cats and Starlight Express and Phantom, I was working with the most famous, how you say, not architect, the most famous, was heißt denn?
Artistic director.
An assistant director or
No, a director. With directors like I worked with don't get it right now.
It's all right.
It was too much with the pandemic. I had to go to the hospital, and it's still in. I know persons and everything, but then it doesn't click. Yeah, so I have to live with that.
Not to worry. I know that was a long time ago. Afterwards, in 2004, you received the Real Award for the Best Producer in Los Angeles.
Oh yeah, Los Angeles, yeah. It was a lot of fun. Great people. And was a great experience. We had about 200 people competing. It was an event over three or 4 days. And there are lookalikes. It's phenomenal.
So you found a lot of talent over there.
Yes.
Because we know that Los Angeles specifically, you have people from all over the world, and especially in the United States, going to Los Angeles to try and become celebrities. But kind of difficult when you look like an existing celebrity. But then
it can be great and not so great. Yeah.
Well, you can get a breakthrough in the impersonation business.
But I met people there, I thought it's the real one, but it wasn't. It was a lookalike, or the opposite. The opposite, I thought it's a lookalike. No, he was a famous, they had a brilliant president, in sports, etc. So I had a guy in my car, I thought he's a film artist. And we spoke. And then he said, "Come on, let's have a beer." And I said, "How nice!" And then he told me his real name. It was, but he looked. There are impersonators. They walk in hotels. Oh, hello, and please. Well, and I had. There was an official ceremony. Best in Germany, the best composer, the best singer, and Michael Jackson was one of the winners. And that was, the whole press was filled with Michael Jackson, but he wasn't there. And it was a completely different person. He looked exactly like Michael Jackson. And when we went in Frankfurt, we went in this hall. They were all waiting for Michael to show up, and he said, "Can I first use the restroom?" So the room was totally laughing, and they didn't take it serious. But he used the restroom, and then he came out and hold a nice speech, introduced me, and people freaked out. And we had to find a way how to get him out of the theater.
Yes, because there's a lot of groupies in the US, and they tend to jump on people when they see a celebrity. They want an autograph, they want pictures, and that puts a lot of pressure, especially when you don't have a security detail already worked out because you didn't expect it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a lot of fun, at the beginning, these impersonators, they haven't been that much liked, but in Germany it was just interesting. If Donald Trump, there was a Donald Trump
Look-alike?
very, very, very good, and I think in this Caesar's Palace, it was his impersonator and not himself. But they never tell you. Could be.
Wow. Well, we wonder now if the impersonator was the actual president in the past few years. So to complete this, these fantastic awards that you received in the US, you also got a Lifetime Achievement Award in Las Vegas in 2006.
Yeah, that was too early. I think I wanted to live longer, and they gave me a lifetime award. I said, well, I'm not finishing, I want to continue.
Well, that definitely shows the level of talent you had already there. So did you actually think about bringing these US or American lookalikes to Germany to start a show here, or did you seek talent locally? Because, for example, currently, the stars we saw yesterday, we have two of them from the United Kingdom. Mm-hmm. One is from Liverpool. The other one is from England somewhere. I don't recall, sorry. And we have the lady doing Aretha Franklin that does come from Los Angeles. So you imported the talent to Germany.
To Germany, yeah. Yeah, I mean, the problem... It was great for kids to copy somebody. If it's in sports or whatever, it doesn't. I mean, you have an idol, and my idol was from sports. Was my idol, and but I didn't try to be like him because he was too good. And as an impersonator, you have to learn all the music, etc. It's not that easy to come, and it's not Mickey Mouse theater. It's very, very serious, and many impersonators are hired in the film industry. Mm-hmm. In many films, they hire impersonators,
like
teach them
body doubles.
Yeah,
what they call in the movies.
Yeah, and.
Well, so this has been lasting for 26 years here at Estrel.
Yes.
So I know that most of the artists have been here for actually a long period of time. The gentleman doing Robbie Williams has been with you for 16 years. Mm-hmm. So they really had the time to perfect this art.
Yes, we have. Unfortunate, many people who are the impersonators have, how you say, are not honored enough. I think, because I think this is a kind of art, and if you can act like Trump, that's not that good. Sorry.
No, understandable.
And no, that's on a different level. It's if you play theater, in the theater business, and you are the leading actor, it's the same. But people usually are impersonator. Well, we have good and bad.
Now, how does this work? Do you actually find somebody that looks like a celebrity and you do a show based on his character? Or do you actually have an idea, let's say I want Elvis Presley, and then you find the lookalike? So what's the process in your mind?
I do both, basically both. Many people call me up, oh, Bernhard, I was there, and there was a guy, he looked like Elvis. And I said, okay, tell him to send his mail stuff, and but you can't see too much. You have to work with these people, and I have a very, very serious Michael Jackson, and Michael Jackson wanted to see his impersonator, and he came with his kids, and I placed it so we drive into the garage, and from the garage backside where the Raiders are coming, there we're gonna walk up to the stage. You get your prize, and then we have to try to find our way out. And we drove up. The people were standing, screaming. He's too well. He will do a concert, and he played one song, and people till today they think they saw Michael Jackson.
So to train these performers to really act like the original artist, I've been told that you also got the help from some people that worked with the real artist.
Yes. You have to work with the real. You have to work with the best, and the real. They know exactly about his painting, about movements, and this has to be exactly one-to-one, that you can't find a difference.
Yeah.
And there are maybe 15 to 20 people in the world who can do that.
Wow. You actually worked with the Beatles at some point?
Not the real Beatles.
Not the real Beatles. So there was Ringo Starr and Paul McCartney?
I was 14 when they started, and I got approached by people. Why don't you do a show, a musical about the Beatles? The Beatles, they lived in Hamburg. Mm-hmm. I was 14 and lived in Stuttgart, so there was no chance to see them live. And but I moved to Hamburg to work on this project, and I met many people, Hamburgers who knew
the Beatles.
The Beatles, yeah. And one Beatle told Paul McCartney, said, "If you want to do something about us, go ahead and do it, but be clear who is the impersonator and who is the real." I said, "Okay, we will be always." And when we announced the real, it was the real.
Have you ever been approached by politicians that would ask you to train their body doubles?
Yeah.
Probably happened, huh? Is Vladimir Putin one of them?
The one goes to the restroom, and on the other side, the other gets
that's
out.
The perfect place to switch, because nobody's going to follow you in there. Excellent.
There are people, they call up and, "Hey, can you I have this and this and this, and what do you think?" And with makeup, and I said, "Sure, we can do many things," and they are very proud.
Am I talking to the real Bernhard, or is this your body double?
Yes, you can hear it, because through the pandemic I got a little, it's a little bit hard, because my memory is not as good as it was.
Well, we're lucky today that you're healthy, and very happy to have you here today with us.
I never win in the lottery, so that was...
Well, I think you won the lottery, because what you've achieved here is astonishing. My grandfather used to tell me, do one thing and do it well. You did one thing extremely well in your life.
Well, I had a great chance. I split from my brother. We split. He did his thing, I did my thing. And then I heard it's a hotel being built from Mr. Streletsky, etc. I met my now wife there, and so I spoke with Mr. Streletsky, and what about having shows and this, and that was the approach. But he and I said it has to be different, like in a theater. It's not a theater. We have to be focused on different kind of shows, and that's what we do. We have about 20 different shows.
Because I haven't seen, even around Europe, we were in Vegas last July for our first convention, and you see real, famous people that have their slots, but impersonators around the world, there are not many shows where you actually see some, and there are no shows where you see this many. So last night we saw Robbie Williams, Tom Jones, Whitney Houston, I don't know, who am I missing? Who?
Aretha Franklin.
Aretha Franklin, thank you very much. And Madonna. So having that much talent, all impersonators on the same stage in one night is breathtaking. It was like being in a time machine. It's like jumping back right down to the 60s or the 80s and reliving all sorts of emotions. Yeah. Well, at least that it brought back to me all the memories and the emotions of when I was a kid, because I'm 52 years old, born in the 70s. So most of these were in their prime when I was a kid. So that it was an incredible experience.
And you also have to notice these are intelligent people. Very often they say, lookalikes, and they are all crazy. They all run around like and horrible. I said, well, these are artists. I mean, Graham Patrick, he sings exactly like Elvis, 1-to-1. And I play, who is it? Is it Elvis? Is it? Who is it? I said, well, it's this, and I have not have thought that. So people, they think impersonators are, well, there are some like that, but they can sing. They are great artists. They are hired from the film industry. Mm-hmm. There are many films with impersonators. And
so when you become an impersonator, I think you have to learn everything about the life of the actor, actress, or singer that you're imitating. Yeah. That's a very interesting process. So when an impersonator does this for such a long period of time, how much of his own personality does he actually lose?
The real ones, the real talented ones, they can split. They are done with the show, they go in their dressing room, and they go back to their private role. And for them, it's like theater. They go into the role I have to play now, like Elvis, and then he does that. Who would think that Graham is the #1 Elvis imitator?
So when you see him as himself, you would never guess it. Wow, well, that's.
When you hear his voice, who is it? Who is it?
Wow.
And musically, he's studying. He musically, he knows. Would you like this version I did in the concert in Paris, or you want me to do this concert version in London, or this one? He knows everything about Elvis.
Wow.
Yeah. But private, he does everything not to look like Elvis. If you would never, right? You would never think he is the #1 impersonator of Elvis Presley.
Oh, I noticed also yesterday that you didn't choose the easy path, because when we take somebody imitating Whitney Houston and singing the song "I Will Always Love You," which is actually the hardest song to imitate in the whole world. That's a known fact. It's a song that is incredibly hard to do, not only because the voice of Whitney Houston is hard to imitate. She has a certain intonation and pitch that is hard to match. The performance yesterday was incredibly close, but I still felt that you do a little bit adapt the song to the voice of the imitator, to use the maximum of his talent or her talent.
There are not that many people who can figure it out.
So I guess you won't. I was looking for it, so that maybe was not fair. But if you're not expecting it, you wouldn't make a difference. Yeah.
Yeah, and there are like people. Well, it was Michael Jackson. Open air concert and crane and flying numbers and
80,000 people.
But in between, he disappeared, and the other Michael Jackson, who was the artist, came out from that side, and people they were standing. They thought it was Michael Jackson.
Oh my! If he wasn't dead today, I think everybody would ask for a refund. Wow, fantastic. Well, I know that you had some input also when it comes to the showroom. I think the owner here wanted to revamp, refurbish the hangar where you actually have the show theater, the show theater, and you actually wanted to keep it the way it is.
Yeah.
Why is that? What did it have in particular that you liked in the ambiance?
Well, I wanted to go. Well, also financial aspect. Why? I had no clue how would it work. How should I do this or that? So I have to try out many things, and therefore I don't know. I don't need expensive equipment because I want that you are great and not your mic.
Yeah.
And this was one thing, and second, said we're gonna start with the old technique, etc. And if we can, we want to sound like people in the early days. So I can't have the most modern mic. I mean, with the Beatles, I have old mics. The Beatles mics that was from 1965, 66. We have 66, 67. The guitars are from 1964. So we have the original equipment.
So these instruments deliver a particular sound that you don't want any distortion, so it really mimics what happened back in the days that they were performing on stage. That's the level of detail that this gentleman had to deal with. And that's where the genius comes in.
Oh, thank you.
Well, we're witness to that.
I'm not a good singer. I could sing in a chorus.
Well, that's why you get other people to do it for you.
I thought let the other people do the work. I grew up in sports, and many people ask me, sports and now showbiz. I said, yeah, it's the same. It's a competition. Yeah, and that's basically my advantage. I grew up in sports, and to teach, how to get somebody there, how give the acts the feeling that you trust them, that you believe on them.
So now instead of coaching athletes, you were coaching artists.
Yeah.
So it still went to get your basic talent, and it applied in both cases.
Yeah.
Did your brother notice that in you when he recommended that you change orientation?
My brother was the businessman. Yeah, he studied psychology. How to make money without having crazy. He couldn't. He criticized his teachers, and he got kicked out from school.
That's what happened to most geniuses, actually.
And my English was better than his. He was 3 years older than I was. So I wrote a letter in English on behalf of my brother in Pennsylvania to a university, if there is a chance for him to get a place to study. And surprise, he was a good soccer player. And he got an invitation because of his soccer, and so finally he got a contract to play soccer, and on the other hand, he got a scholarship to study in Pennsylvania.
Well,
and so he brought the American way of doing business. And I learned it's...
What years are we talking about? Was that in the...
That was 1970, 72 Olympic Games in Munich.
Munich, wow.
And I was just finished with school, and my brother was in the States, in Pennsylvania, and he got hired from the American Olympic team to translate with 18, 19, and from the area. We lived in Munich.
Mm-hmm.
And from Munich, he called me, Bernhard, come to Munich. There are people, they have a lot of people to fire because they don't speak English and this, and they are looking urgently. Okay, I took the train to Munich, walked in. Good morning, my name is Bernhard Kurz. I hear here could be a job for me. Can you speak English? I said, a little bit. They asked me two or three sentences, and said, you have the job. I said, what kind of job? You are the translator for the Kenyan athletic team. Okay, I could live in the village.
Yeah.
And I helped the Kenyans to
Communicate.
get along. And I had a pass, I had access to everything.
Wow.
So I stood at 100 meters, really maybe 2-3 meters away from all these great athletes.
So Jesse Owens.
Kipchoge, Kano, and all the African middle distance runners.
Yeah. Wow. Did you ever think of writing your biography?
Yes, but this is half. But it's in German.
So we do have a book that recounts part of your story here?
Yes.
Can we show it to the public here?
That was a theater piece about Marlene Dietrich.
Wow, let me show this. Bernhard Kurz, Impersonators. Der Musical-Krieg hinter des Kulissen des Showbiz. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, but...
The Blonde Catastrophe. I did a show and close.
Is this book in sale at the hotel?
No.
Well,
I'll give it to you.
Should be. We'll want our visitors to grab a copy when they're here. Maybe they can get an autographed copy.
It's
because when you're carrying so much history, it's absolutely
this
priceless.
is the running account May 91 for Starlight Express Bochum. There are all the figures.
Wow.
It's figures.
Oh, that's the financials back then?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And here in Stella Musical, that was Cats Hamburg, was the best money-making show in history. 36% win after tax. 36.
Wow.
For 17 years.
And
I sold it.
I'm very impressed. That's something. So, because your show...
That was the opening premiere of Starlight Express. There are demonstrations against capitalism.
That's a gigantic crowd literally out in the streets.
Yeah, this is in Hamburg.
Were these water cannons?
Yes.
Also, people were being
and
water
the theater
cannoned.
to get in was here.
Uh-huh.
And the VIPs, they wanted to come from here, and they had no chance to get to the theater, so they had to
go all
and
around.
then stage entrance.
So the theater was in East Berlin?
Close.
Well, this is
a lot of figures, and that was the premiere, the old theater in Hamburg, and this is the police. They had to fight that nobody could make it into the theater.
I will put up a few pictures on our group of this book so you can see what we're talking about, but this is really an incredible piece of history.
Stevie Woods, the papa of Starlight Express, but he died about 6-7 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
He had the leading role in Starlight Express.
Well, that's fascinating also to, once again, impersonators, Bernhard Kurz, grab a copy because it's a piece of history. Here, the protest back then. I'll put up a few pictures. That's very nice. Now, your show was actually exported worldwide?
Yeah.
Or does it mostly occurs here in Berlin? It's been produced here at the Estrel Hotel and Convention Center for 26 years, but it also became a road show and it's being produced around the world.
Yes, we one show finished today. They came from Vienna, Austria, about an hour ago. The others, the Americans, they flew in yesterday. One flew in from Orlando, and the other one from London, and another one from I think from New York. And they have their first show today in Vienna, in Austria.
Wow. If I'm not wrong, Fred, this was produced by Estrel, and Estrel is managing this show, even if it's being produced in other cities in the world, correct? Yeah, all right. Well, so what does the future have in store for us? What are you working on? Because I saw a show about the divas, so we're talking about Whitney Houston and other divas from the, I'd say even 60s, 70s, 80s. We have impersonators like Elvis Presley and Tom Jones. We have the Beatles.
Yeah.
The Beatles will actually be happening during the Jigsaw Puzzle International Convention in May. So that's the show that you will be able to see if you're here for the convention. And so you have different shows running at different dates.
Yeah.
And these productions, you're working with all of them at the same time, but how many years did you work on them to get to that level with all of these together?
I would say 15 years.
Wow.
It's a long process. You need 100% people who are behind these projects.
Now, one of the difficulties is that we know that people, when you're dealing with human labor, if you'd say, with human beings or people, they get sick, they get tired, they have some events in their life, they can have a child and be called off. So are you always seeking for new talent, and how do you work with a backup plan in this kind of industry?
The problem is there are not as many talented people anymore. It starts in schools. I don't know about the States, but in Germany it's a disaster. It's up to the kids if they go to school or not to school. The first thing that gets penciled out in school is sports. And the second they pencil out is music.
And I'd say even history. They're teaching less and less history. They're going less back in time.
Yeah.
So the new generations are not exposed to this culture, and they're not aware of the history of the musical culture as well.
Right, and I think many kids, they just don't go to school anymore. Around 14, 15, why should I go to school? So, and music is, I think, so important for kids to develop, etc. I think with music you can learn a lot, but we sit in front of a machine and instead of making the music ourselves.
Yes.
Or sports, the one guy sits in front of watch sports and is drinking his beer and well, this kind of sport is disaster.
Well, now they consider sports on the sports channels. Poker is now a sport. I mean, that's not really what we're thinking of. And when it comes to artists, yes, the kids nowadays, they spend more time on video games, they spend more time on computers, And even the music shows, now they're all electronic. We're talking techno music. So live performances, which used to be very big back in the days, were very important because they would help the performers sell more albums. But nowadays, because music is so freely available on the internet, the artists had to come back on stage because they're actually making money touring. So, I mean, yes, there's the negative side of the technology, but there's also this positive side where artists are coming back on stage to perform because that's how they make money anymore now, and not by selling albums.
Yeah, and you see, if it's their lifestyle, they for a musician, it's part of his life, and there is a message in music, and how do we want to reach the kids? And on the other hand, we have to know the teachers for music anymore. And kids get asked, "You want to have some lessons?" No. It's a little bit frustrating, and nobody cares much.
But thanks to you, you're preserving this slice of history and helping us today experience what some of us couldn't see back in those days. I was personally too young in the 70s to see Tom Jones or Aretha Franklin on stage. And yesterday I actually went back in time and lived the experience as if I was born in that era. So it's a fantastic show. It's really worth coming to see any one of those. I really encourage anybody coming to Berlin, whether it's for the Jigsaw Puzzle International Convention or whether you're coming here on business or on vacation, come to Estrel, come see one of the shows produced by Mr. Bernhard Kurz.
Yeah, you're all welcome.
Thank you very much for doing this. It was greatly appreciated.
Thank you for having me.
Sir, it was a pleasure. Thank you, everybody, and we'll see you on the next episode of JPiC Radio.